She found him dying in the snow, a stranger bleeding out on a mountain road. Without thinking, she gave him her blood to save his life. What she didn't know, he was a vampire king, and her rare blood just bound her to him forever. The delivery app pinged one last time as Suri killed the engine. "Final order complete," she muttered, watching her breath fog in the freezing air. The mountain road stretched ahead like a black ribbon, snow falling harder now. She should have turned down this last delivery, 20 miles up into nowhere for a $15 tip, but rent was due in 3 days. Her bike's headlight cut through the storm as she started the descent. The roads up here were always dangerous in winter, but tonight felt different.
Wrong.
The kind of quiet that pressed against your ears. Then she saw the red. Dark splatters across white snow, leading off the road into the tree line.
Fresh.
Still steaming in the cold. Suri's heart kicked against her ribs. She should keep driving. Call the ranger station. Let someone else handle whatever animal got hit out here. But she'd seen enough accident scenes working night deliveries. That wasn't animal blood. She parked the bike and grabbed her emergency kit, the one her grandmother made her carry, the one with the donor supplies she'd never actually used. Her boots crunched through snow as she followed the trail. "Hello." Her voice sounded small against the wind. "Can you hear me?" The blood led to a figure collapsed against a tree trunk. A man, pale as the snow around him, dressed in clothes that looked expensive but torn, soaked through with blood from wounds across his chest and arms. His skin had a strange, almost translucent quality in her flashlight beam.
Dead.
Had to be dead. Nobody survived blood loss like that. Then his chest moved.
Barely. Once.
Oh God, Suri dropped to her knees beside him, fingers pressed to his throat. His pulse was there, faint, irregular, like his heart was forgetting how to beat. His skin was ice cold, but not quite corpse cold. Not yet. The wounds were bizarre. Deep slashes that looked almost burned at the edges, as if whatever cut him had been white hot. Silver? The word popped into her head unbidden. Why would she think silver? Hospitals were 40 miles away. He'd be dead in minutes, not hours. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "You have a gift, Suri. Rare blood.
Universal do unir.
Someday, it might save a life." Suri's hands were already moving, unzipping the kit, pulling out the needle, the tubing. She'd practiced this a dozen times in the certification class she took after Grandma died. Never thought she'd actually use it. "This is insane," she whispered, but she was already tying the tourniquet around her own arm, finding her vein. "Stay with me. Just stay with me." The needle slid in. Her blood, darker than seemed right in the flashlight glow, began flowing through the tube. She worked fast, hands shaking as she found a vein in his arm, inserted the second needle. The moment her blood entered his system, his eyes snapped open. They glowed. Actual silver light, like moonlight trapped under ice, flooding his irises. Not reflecting her flashlight, glowing from within. Suri jerked back, but the tubes held them connected. "What?" No, his voice was rough, ancient, carrying an accent she couldn't place. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with impossible strength. "No, you shouldn't have." Heat exploded between their touching skin. Suri screamed. It felt like someone pressed a branding iron to her wrist, but when she looked down, there was no fire. Instead, a mark was burning itself into existence on both their wrists, an intricate pattern of crescents and spirals, silver bright and gleaming. The man stared at their joined wrists, and something like horror crossed his too beautiful face. "The sigil," he breathed. "The moonlit blood sigil. What have you done?" "What have I done?" Suri's voice pitched high. "You're the one glowing. What are you?" But she could feel it now, a thread connecting them, humming with strange energy. She could sense his heartbeat strengthening, his wounds beginning to close. And underneath that, his shock, his fear, his sudden fierce protectiveness toward her that made no sense. "Your name." He pulled the needles free with steady hands, and she noticed the wounds were healing, flesh knitting together before her eyes. Tell me your name.
Suri.
Suri Kong. Suri, he said it like a prayer. Like a curse. He stood, movements fluid and powerful now, completely transformed from the dying man she'd found 60 seconds ago. My name is Aldrich, and you've just bound your life to mine. The wind picked up, and with it came a sound that raised every hair on Suri's neck. Howling. Multiple voices, not quite wolf, not quite human. Aldrich's head snapped toward the sound, his glowing eyes narrowing. They've sensed it. The bond. We need to move.
Now.
Sensed what? What bond? What are you? Suri scrambled to her feet, but her legs felt weak. The blood donation plus whatever just happened was hitting her system hard. Later, Aldrich pulled her upright easily, one arm supporting her weight. There's a ranger shelter half a mile east. Can you walk? Can I? Suri's laugh sounded slightly hysterical. I just gave blood to a man with glowing eyes who says we're bonded, and something is howling in the woods. Walking seems like the least weird thing happening right now. Another howl, closer now. Through the trees, she could see shapes moving. Fast. Too fast. Aldrich's jaw tightened. Suri calm, his silver eyes met hers, and she saw in them something that made her believe every impossible thing. I am Aldrich, King of the Moonborn. And you just saved my life with blood that shouldn't exist. Now run. He didn't wait for her response. His hand closed around hers, the one marked with the still glowing sigil, and they ran into the storm. Behind them, the howls turned hungry. The ranger shelter was barely more than 4 walls and a roof, but it had a door that locked and shutters Aldrich slammed closed the moment they stumbled inside. Suri collapsed against the wall, lungs burning, her delivery uniform soaked through with snow and sweat. What were those things? She gasped. Aldrich didn't answer. He was moving through the small space with predatory efficiency, checking every corner, every shadow. In the dim light from her dying flashlight, she could see him clearly for the first time. He looked young, maybe 30, but carried himself like someone much older. His dark hair was long enough to touch his shoulders, and those impossible silver eyes swept the room before finally settling on her. Even disheveled and blood-stained, he looked like he'd stepped out of a painting. Too beautiful to be real. We're safe, he said quietly.
For now.
They won't attack a blessed shelter. Blessed by who? By people who knew what hunted in these mountains long before your kind built roads through them. He crossed to where she sat and knelt down, reaching for her wrist. May I? Suri nodded, too exhausted to argue. His fingers traced the mark on her skin, the crescents and spirals that had stopped glowing but remained visible, like a silver tattoo. His touch sent warmth racing up her arm, and she saw him feel it too, a slight widening of his eyes. The moonlit blood sigil, he said softly. I never thought I'd see one again. The last recorded bond was over 300 years ago. What does it mean? Aldrich sat back on his heels, and for the first time, she saw fear in his expression. Not for himself. For her. It means your life is bound to mine, Suri Kong. A blood pact. If I die, you feel my death through this connection. The pain, the fading. Most humans don't survive it, he paused. And if you die, I follow. True death. No resurrection, no second chances. We are linked now. Permanently. The words hit like stones. That's not possible. I just gave you blood. A transfusion. That's normal. Your blood is anything but normal. He held up his own wrist, showing the matching mark. You carry something in your veins that hasn't existed in the mortal world for centuries. Royal-grade blood. The kind that can break curses, restore power, and yes, create bonds that shouldn't be possible. Suri's head spun. I'm just a delivery driver. My blood is O-negative.
Universal do unir.
That's it. O-negative doesn't make corpses walk. Aldrich's smile was bitter. I was dying, Suri. Not injured, dying. I've been dying slowly for 300 years, weakened by a curse that's been eating away at my people. When your blood entered my system, it didn't just heal my wounds. It reactivated powers I haven't felt since before the curse took hold. He stood, and suddenly his form seemed to blur. One moment, he was across the room. The next, he was beside the window, moving faster than her eyes could track. When he stopped, he was breathing hard, but there was wonder in his expression.
Speed. Strength.
Senses sharper than they've been in lifetimes, he turned to her. Your blood gave me back what was stolen, but it also chained you to me. Chained, Suri repeated numbly. I don't use the word lightly. Aldrich crossed back to her, and this time he sat down beside her, close enough that she could see the silver flecks shifting in his eyes like living metal. You saved my life, and in doing so, trapped yourself. The pact cannot be broken.
I'm sorry.
Sorry doesn't really cover it, but even as she said it, Suri felt that strange warmth again, the awareness of him beside her. She could sense his regret, genuine and deep. Could feel his heartbeat, stronger now, steady, as if it were her own. What did you mean, King of the Moonborn? I ruled a kingdom once. A lineage of vampires tied to the moon rather than the sun's absence. We were different from the others, stronger, more controlled. But we were betrayed, cursed, and scattered. His jaw tightened. I've spent 3 centuries barely surviving, hiding, trying to find a way to break the curse. And then you came along with blood that shouldn't exist and changed everything. Those things in the woods. Shadeborn.
Arriba al clan.
The moment the sigil formed, they sensed it. Sense me awakening, he met her eyes. They'll want you dead, Suri. Breaking our bond would force me back into weakness. And others. Others will want to capture you, use your blood for themselves. So, I'm a target. Yes. Because I try to save your life. Yes. Suri laughed, the sound slightly unhinged. My grandmother always said helping strangers would get me killed. Aldrich's expression softened. I won't let that happen. The bond goes both ways. I'll protect you with everything I have. He held up his marked wrist. And you're not as helpless as you think. Did you notice how fast you ran through that forest? How you didn't stumble once in the dark? She had noticed. She'd moved like someone who'd hiked these mountains her whole life, not a city girl in cheap boots. The pact enhances you, Aldrich continued. Reflexes, instincts, senses. It's already beginning. You're connected to me now, and that means you carry a fraction of what I am. Outside, the wind howled. Or maybe it was something else. Suri looked at the mark on her wrist, then at the vampire king sitting beside her in a ranger shelter in the middle of nowhere. So, what happens now? Aldrich's smile was grim.
Now?
We survive. And we find out why your blood exists at all. Dawn was still an hour away when the first window exploded inward. Suri jerked awake from restless sleep, her hand instinctively flying to the mark on her wrist. It was burning hot, pulsing with warning. Beside her, Aldrich was already moving, pulling her behind him as glass rained down across the shelter floor. They found us, he said, voice deadly calm. 3 figures dropped through the shattered window with inhuman grace. They were different from Aldrich. Their eyes burned red instead of silver, and their skin had a gray, almost corpse-like quality. When they smiled, their fangs were longer, cruder. The Moonborn King, the largest one, hissed, his voice like gravel scraping stone. And his new pet. How touching. Shadeborn, Aldrich's body was coiled, ready to strike. You're bold, attacking during the sacred hours. Sacred hours mean nothing when the moon court has fallen, the creature's red eyes fixed on Suri. We just want the girl. Give her to us, and we'll make your second death quick. Suri felt Aldrich's rage spike through their connection, hot and fierce. You'll have to go through me. That can be arranged. They attacked. Aldrich met the first one head-on, and Suri watched in stunned horror as they collided with bone-crushing force. The shelter's wooden walls shook. The Shadeborn was strong, but Aldrich was faster, barely. His movements were fluid, precise, but she could feel his struggle through the bond. He wasn't at full strength yet. 3 centuries of weakness didn't vanish overnight. The second attacker lunged for Suri. Time seemed to slow. She could see every detail, the creature's claws extending, its red eyes locked on her throat, the trajectory of its strike. Her body moved before her brain caught up, throwing herself sideways in a roll that should have been impossible in the cramped space. The claws raked empty air where her neck had been a split second before. What? The Shadeborn turned, confused, and Suri grabbed the only weapon in reach, her flashlight, and swung it with all her strength. The metal connected with the creature's temple. It shouldn't have done much. But the impact sent the Shadeborn reeling backward, actual surprise crossing its face. The bond, Suri realized.
I'm stronger. Faster.
Interesting, the third attacker said, watching her with its head tilted. The human has teeth. Aldrich slammed his opponent against the wall hard enough to crack wood, then spun toward Suri. The door.
Now.
But the third Shadeborn was already blocking their exit, and the one Suri had hit was recovering, murder in its red eyes. You broke my focus, it snarled at her. I'm going to enjoy draining every drop of that royal blood from your veins. It lunged again, but this time Aldrich was there, intercepting midair. They crashed into the far wall, sending the remaining furniture scattering. The shelter was too small, too confined. They needed space to run. Through the broken window, Suri spotted it, the old service tunnel entrance, half buried in snow about 20 yards away. Rangers used them for emergency evacuations during avalanches. Aldrich. She pointed. The tunnel system. He glanced back, understanding flashing in his silver eyes. Can you make it? Do I have a choice? His laugh was sharp and brief.
No.
The first Shadeborn Aldrich had fought was getting back up, black blood oozing from a gash across its face. All three were now between them and freedom, and Suri could feel Aldrich's strength flagging through the bond. He was burning through power faster than her blood could replenish it. On three, Aldrich said quietly, reaching back to grip her hand. The moment their marked wrists touched, energy surged between them. Suri gasped as strength flooded her limbs, and she felt Aldrich straighten, renewed. We run together. Don't let go. 1. The lead Shadeborn counted mockingly, stalking closer. 2. 3. Aldrich exploded forward, still gripping Suri's hand. What happened next felt like controlled chaos. Aldrich moved like a whirlwind, his free hand striking faster than Suri could follow, forcing the Shadeborn to scatter. She felt every move through their connection, her body anticipating, matching his rhythm. When he dodged left, she flowed with him. When he struck right, she ducked under his arm without thinking. They burst through the circle of attackers like water through broken stone. The snow outside was ankle-deep, but Suri's legs pumped with impossible strength. Behind them, the Shadeborn howled in rage, giving chase. Aldrich yanked open the rusted tunnel entrance, shoving Suri inside first before following and slamming it shut. The metal door shuddered as bodies hit it from outside. Move! Aldrich pushed her deeper into the darkness. The tunnels connect to the city service system. They can't follow us into human territory without exposing themselves. Suri ran, her hand still locked in his, the mark on her wrist blazing like a beacon in the dark. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit began to fade, but she could hear the lead Shadeborn's voice echoing down the tunnel. You can't hide forever, Moon King. Every faction will be hunting you now. Your little bond has painted a target on both your backs. The words chased them into the darkness, and Suri knew with terrible certainty that this was only the beginning. Suri's apartment was exactly as she'd left it, small, cluttered with delivery gear, and blessedly normal. She'd never been so happy to see her second-hand couch. Home sweet home, she muttered, locking the door behind them. They'd emerged from the tunnels at dawn, catching an early bus into the city outskirts. Aldrich had kept his hood up the whole ride, those silver eyes hidden behind dark glasses he'd borrowed from a convenience store. Now he stood in her tiny living room, looking impossibly out of place. A vampire king surrounded by her unpaid bills and instant noodle cups. We shouldn't stay long, Aldrich said, but exhaustion lined his face. The escape had drained him more than he wanted to admit. You need rest. We both do. Suri collapsed onto the couch. Every muscle ached. Besides, you said they can't attack in broad daylight in the city. Too many witnesses. True, he moved to her window, peering through the blinds at the street below. But that only buys us hours, not days. Suri pulled off her torn jacket and froze. The mark on her wrist was darker now, the silver lines more defined, spreading slightly up her forearm like delicate vines. Aldrich? Is it supposed to do this? He was beside her instantly, taking her wrist in his hands. His expression grew serious. The bond is deepening. Settling into your system, his thumb traced one of the new lines. How do you feel? Tired. Hungry. Like I ran a marathon, she paused. And I can still sense you. Your worry.
Your
guilt. The guilt is warranted. He released her wrist gently. Suri, I need to understand how this is possible. Do you have any family documents? Birth records, genealogy, anything about your bloodline? Bloodline? I'm not royalty. My grandmother worked in a factory. My mom was a teacher. Humor me. Suri sighed but pulled out the old box from her closet, the one with grandma's things she couldn't bear to throw away.
photo, certificat, award leader journal.
This is all I have. Grandma died 2 years ago. She was the last of her family. Aldrich took the journal carefully, his fingers tracing the aged leather. When he opened it, his entire body went still. What? Suri leaned over his shoulder. What is it? The pages were filled with her grandmother's handwriting, but mixed throughout were drawings, symbols, crescents, spirals. The same patterns as the mark on their wrists. Your grandmother knew, Aldrich breathed. She knew what you were. He flipped to a page near the back where a family tree was sketched out, going back generations. At the very top, written in faded ink, was a name, Linares. Linares, Aldrich repeated, his voice shaking. Suri, you're not just carrying rare blood. You're descended from the Linares Guardians. The what? An ancient bloodline. Humans who served as protectors and companions to moonborn royalty centuries ago. They were specially chosen, their blood enhanced through ritual magic to allow them to survive our world. To bond with us, fight alongside us, anchor our power. He looked at her with something like awe. They disappeared after the curse. We thought the line had died out completely. Suri's mind reeled. My grandmother never said anything about vampires or magic or... She probably didn't know the full truth herself. The knowledge was likely lost over generations, watered down into family stories or superstitions. He turned another page, revealing a pressed flower, silver petals, perfectly preserved. Moon's breath. Only grows near moonborn sanctuaries. Your grandmother must have visited one, or her mother did. So, what does this mean? That my family was...
What?
Servants. Partners, Aldrich corrected firmly. The Linares Guardians were nobility in their own right. They chose to stand with us, and in return, we protected them, elevated them. The bonds they formed weren't slavery. They were alliances between equals. He set the journal down and met her eyes. Your blood isn't a mutation, Suri. It's your inheritance. Diluted after centuries without contact with our kind, yes, but still potent enough to activate a blood pact. Potent enough to break pieces of my curse. Pieces? You mean it's not completely broken? Not yet, his jaw tightened. But with you, with time, it could be. The implications settled over her like a heavy blanket. That's why they want me. Not just to hurt you, but to use me.
Yes.
Your blood could restore power to any vampire who takes it. But the bond chose me. And now he hesitated. There are side effects you need to know about. More side effects? Beyond the super reflexes and the mind reading. It's not mind reading. It's emotional resonance. He ran a hand through his hair. And yes, more. As the bond deepens, your senses will amplify. You'll grow stronger, faster, more perceptive, but also more sensitive to emotion, to pain, to stimulus. It can be overwhelming if you don't learn control. And if I don't learn control, the bond could consume you, burn through your humanity, and leave you
changed.
not vampire, but not entirely human either. His expression was grave. I won't let that happen. I can train you, teach you to manage the connection. But Suri, you need to understand, your life will never be normal again. She looked around her tiny apartment, at the life she'd built delivering food in the middle of the night, scraping by alone. Normal had never been that great anyway. Okay, she said finally. Teach me. Aldrich's silver eyes widened slightly. Just like that. Just like that, Suri held up her marked wrist. We're stuck together, right? Might as well figure out how to survive it. For the first time since they met, Aldrich smiled, really smiled. It transformed his whole face, making him look less like an ancient king and more like someone who'd forgotten what hope felt like. Then we start now. Because surviving is just the beginning, Suri Kong. We're going to end this. The train to Silva Hollow rattled through the countryside, putting miles between them and the city. Suri watched the landscape blur past, her new senses picking up details she'd never noticed before. Individual leaves on distant trees, the separate heartbeats of passengers 3 rows ahead. Focus on my voice, Aldrich murmured beside her, his hand covering hers. Don't try to process everything at once. Filter. Choose what matters. She did, and the overwhelming flood of sensation narrowed to something manageable. Better. Good, he glanced around the train car. They'd chosen seats in the back, away from other passengers. The Moon Temple is in the forest outside Silver Hollow. Abandoned for 200 years, but the old protections should still hold. We'll be safe there while we search the archives. What exactly are we looking for? Answers about the Blood Pact. How to stabilize it, strengthen it, and how to use it against our enemies. His silver eyes met hers. The Shadeborn attack was just the beginning. By now, every faction knows I've awakened. They'll be mobilizing. The train lurched, and Suri felt Aldrich tense. Through the bond, she caught his sudden alertness. Danger. What is it? 2 cars behind us. Watchers, his voice was barely a whisper. Don't look. They're trying to blend in, but their heartbeats are wrong. Too slow. More Shadeborn. Worse. Daywalkers. Vampires who've traded their power for the ability to move in sunlight. They work as mercenaries. His grip on her hand tightened. We get off at the next stop. Stay close. The train began slowing for Millbrook Station, still 30 miles from Silva Hollow. Aldrich stood casually, helping Suri with her bag like they were normal travelers. But she could feel his readiness through the bond, coiled like a spring. They stepped onto the platform with a handful of other passengers. Suri risked a glance back and saw them. 2 men in long coats, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, moving with predatory purpose. Walk, Aldrich said quietly. Don't run yet. They headed toward the station exit, but the daywalkers were closing in, cutting through the small crowd with practiced ease. Suri's heart hammered against her ribs. Then Aldrich yanked her sideways, through a service door that shouldn't have been unlocked. They burst into a maintenance corridor, and suddenly they were running. Behind them, the door crashed open. Footsteps pounded after them. Through here. Aldrich pulled her into a storage room filled with cleaning supplies, then toward a window. He shoved it open, and they dropped into an alley behind the station. A delivery truck was idling nearby, its driver inside a shop. Aldrich made a decision in an instant, pulling Suri toward the truck bed.
In. Now.
They climbed in among boxes of produce, pulling a tarp over themselves just as the daywalkers emerged from the building. Suri held her breath, pressed against Aldrich in the cramped darkness. She could feel his heart beating against her shoulder, faster than usual. Even a vampire king could feel fear. The driver returned, and the truck rumbled to life. Through a gap in the tarp, Suri watched the daywalkers scanning the area, frustrated. Then they were moving, the station falling away behind them. They stayed hidden for 20 miles until the truck stopped at a distribution center. Slipping out unseen, they found themselves in a rural area near the forest that held the Moon Temple. That was too close, Suri said, once they were safely among the trees. They're getting organized faster than I expected. Aldrich's expression was grim. Someone's coordinating the hunt. Someone with resources. The forest grew denser as they walked, and Suri began to notice changes. The trees here were older, their bark marked with symbols similar to those in her grandmother's journal. The air itself felt different, charged with dormant energy. We're in the temple grounds now, Aldrich said. The boundary ward is still active, weakened but present. We'll be protected here. The Moon Temple emerged from the forest like a ghost. It was smaller than Suri expected, a circular stone structure half reclaimed by nature, its walls carved with intricate patterns of moons and stars. Vines crawled up the columns, and the roof had partially collapsed, letting in shafts of afternoon light. But despite its decay, something about it felt alive, watchful. Aldrich placed his palm against the entrance, and the mark on his wrist glowed silver. The heavy stone door groaned open, revealing darkness within. "Stay behind me," he said, but Suri noticed he kept their hands linked as they entered. Inside, the temple was surprisingly intact. The walls were lined with stone shelves holding ancient scrolls and books, somehow preserved despite centuries of abandonment. In the center stood an altar beneath the open roof, where moonlight would fall at night. "The archives," Aldrich breathed, moving toward the shelves with reverence. "I never thought I'd see them again." He began searching, pulling down texts, scanning them with speed that made Suri dizzy. She wandered toward the altar, drawn by something she couldn't name. Carved into its surface was a large version of the mark on her wrist, the moonlit blood sigil, surrounded by text in a language she couldn't read. But as she traced the symbols with her finger, words began to bloom in her mind. Not translation, understanding. When the Moon King rises with a guardian born, their combined strength shall undo the nightfall curse. 2 souls, 1 purpose. 2 bloods, 1 power. Together they stand, or together they fall. "Aldrich," she called, her voice echoing. "I think I found something." He was beside her instantly, reading the inscription. His face went pale. "A prophecy. I'd heard rumors of one, but I thought it was destroyed." "What's the Nightfall curse?" "The curse that destroyed my kingdom. The one that scattered my people and weakened me to near death." His finger traced the words. "For 300 years, I searched for a way to break it. And here it is." The answer was a guardian born all along. "Me," Suri said quietly. "You," he turned to face her fully. "Suri, this means we're not just bound by accident.
This was meant to happen.
You and I were the prophesied pair. Together, we can end the curse permanently.
Free my people.
And destroy whoever created this nightmare in the first place." The weight of it pressed down on her shoulders. She was just a delivery driver. How could she be part of an ancient prophecy? But looking at Aldrich's face, seeing the hope warring with disbelief in his expression, feeling the truth of the bond humming between them, she knew it was real. "So, what do we do?" "We learn to fight together." And then, his eyes hardened, "We take back what was stolen from my people." They spent 2 days at the temple, training and studying. Aldrich taught Suri how to channel the bond, how to let his strength flow through her without being overwhelmed, how to anticipate his movements in combat. She learned that she could push energy back to him too, sustaining him when his power flagged. "We're like a circuit," she said during one session, breathing hard after sparring practice. "Energy flows both ways." "Exactly," Aldrich handed her water from a stream outside. "That's what makes the guardian bond so powerful. We're not master and servant. We're equals, amplifying each other." On the 3rd morning, Aldrich made a decision. "We need to go to the Moon Court." Suri looked up from the scroll she'd been studying. "I thought your people were scattered. Weakened." "Most are. But the court itself, the physical stronghold, still exists. Underground, Beneath the old capital of Lunmere, his jaw tightened. If anyone knows more about breaking the curse, it'll be in the royal archives there. And if any of my people survived in stasis, they'll be there too. You said if you don't sound certain about a warm welcome. I'm not, he met her eyes. The court fell because of betrayal from within. Whoever orchestrated my downfall might still be in control. But we don't have a choice. We need answers and we need allies. They reached Lunmere by nightfall, an old city built into a mountainside, mostly abandoned now except for tourists visiting the historical district. But Aldrich led her past the tourist traps, into the old quarter, where buildings crumbled and streets went unnamed. Here, he stopped before what looked like a collapsed church. The entrance to the court was hidden in plain sight. They thought humans would never figure it out. He pressed his marked wrist against a specific stone in the wall. The mark glowed, and a section of wall slid open, revealing steps descending into darkness. Suri's enhanced senses picked up something wrong immediately, a smell like old copper and decay. Aldrich, I don't think. I know, his voice was tight. Something's off. But we're here now. Stay alert. They descended together, the bond thrumming between them like a warning bell. The stairs went deep, far below the city's foundations, until they opened into a massive underground chamber. The moon court took Suri's breath away. It was a palace carved from white stone that seemed to glow with inner light, with high ceilings supported by columns shaped like trees. But it was wrong, corrupted. Black veins ran through the stone like infection, and the air was thick with dark energy. No, Aldrich whispered, horror in his voice. What have they done? Figures emerged from the shadows. Vampires, but not like Aldrich. These ones had eyes that swirled with darkness, their features twisted. At their head stood a tall vampire in ancient armor, his face sharp and cruel. Aldrich Moonborn, the vampire's smile was venomous. The Lost King returns. How touching. Valor, Aldrich's voice dropped to a growl. Recognition and rage flooded through the bond. You traitorous bastard. You're alive. Alive? I'm thriving. General Valor spread his arms, gesturing to the corrupted court. While you were dying in the wilderness, I was reshaping our kingdom. No more bowing to human cattle. No more weakness disguised as honor. You created the curse. Understanding crashed over Aldrich's face. You cursed your own king, your own people for power. For evolution, Valor's eyes fixed on Suri. And now you've brought me exactly what I need to complete it. A guardian born. I've searched for centuries for blood like hers. Suri felt Aldrich move in front of her protectively. You won't touch her. I don't need to touch her, fool. I just need to drain her. Valor snapped his fingers, and his corrupted followers began to circle. Did you really think I didn't know about the prophecy? That I hadn't planned for this exact moment? Behind them, a massive apparatus began to rise from the floor, a machine of silver and dark crystal, pulsing with sickly light. At its center was a chair with restraints and tubes, clearly designed to extract blood. The ritual of eternal night, Valor explained, walking toward the machine with reverence. With guardian blood as fuel, I can amplify the curse instead of breaking it. Create an army of vampires like me, unkillable, stronger than Moonborn ever were, free from all weaknesses. No moonlight dependency, no silver burns, nothing. You'll destroy the balance, Aldrich said. Plunge the world into chaos. I'll create a new order. With me as its god. Valor's expression turned cold. Take the girl. Kill Aldrich if he resists. The corrupted vampires lunged. Aldrich and Suri moved as one. The bond flared hot between them, and Suri felt power flood her system like lightning. She dodged attacks she shouldn't have been able to see, her borrowed strength letting her strike hard enough to send vampires reeling. But there were too many. For every one they dropped, two more appeared. Valor watched from beside his machine, not even bothering to fight, confident in his numbers. A blade sliced across Suri's arm, and she cried out. Through the bond, Aldrich felt it, his rage spiking so high it nearly overwhelmed her. He fought like a demon, but She could sense his growing desperation. They were losing. The tunnel. Suri spotted it, a service passage behind one of the corrupted columns. Aldrich, we have to run. He hated it. She felt his hatred of retreat. But he was pragmatic enough to know they couldn't win. Not here, not now, not outnumbered 50-2. They broke for the tunnel, Aldrich using the last of his strength to collapse the entrance behind them. Valor's laughter followed them into the darkness. Run, little king. But the ritual begins in 3 days at the lunar eclipse. When the moon goes dark, so does your hope. I'll drain every drop from your guardian, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. They ran until they emerged miles away in the forest, both bleeding, both exhausted. The bond stretched thin between them. Suri collapsed against a tree. 3 days. He's going to kill me in 3 days. Aldrich pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from fate itself.
No.
I won't let him. I swear to you, Suri. I'll die before I let Valor touch you. But they both knew the truth humming through their bond. If she died, so would he. And Valor was counting on it. They returned to the Moon Temple with 48 hours until the eclipse. Suri's arm was bandaged, and exhaustion sat heavy in her bones, but there was no time to rest. If we're going to do this, we need to be ready, Aldrich said, pacing the temple floor. Valor has numbers and home territory, but he doesn't have what we have. A death wish. Suri tried to joke, but it fell flat. A complete bond, Aldrich knelt before her, taking both her hands. Suri, at the court, we were fighting separately. Working together, yes, but still 2 individuals. The prophecy says 2 souls, 1 purpose, 2 bloods, 1 power. We haven't fully activated the pact. What does that mean? It means stopping holding back. His silver eyes burned into hers. You're afraid of the bond consuming you. I'm afraid of taking too much from you. But that fear is what's limiting us. If we truly merge, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, we become something Valor can't anticipate. Suri's heart raced. That sounds dangerous.
It is.
But so is doing nothing. He squeezed her hands. I won't force this. It has to be your choice. But if you trust me, if you're willing to take that risk, I'll teach you how to channel the full bond. She thought about her grandmother's journal, about the Linares guardians who chose to stand with the Moonborn, about the prophecy carved into the altar behind them, about the delivery driver life she'd left behind that had never felt like enough anyway. Teach me, she said. They trained through the night. Aldrich showed her how to lower the barriers between their minds, how to let his combat instincts flow into her muscle memory. It was terrifying and exhilarating. She could feel his 3 centuries of experience, the weight of his power, the depth of his determination. And he felt her too, her resilience, her stubborn refusal to give up, her unexpected courage. You're stronger than you know, he murmured during a break, genuine admiration in his voice. I had a good teacher, she replied. By dawn, something had shifted. When they sparred, they moved like one person in 2 bodies. When Aldrich struck, Suri was already moving to follow up. When she dodged, he was there to cover her opening. The bond sang between them, perfect synchronization. That's it, Aldrich said, breathing hard but smiling. That's what we need. The second night they planned. Valor's ritual requires him to be at the machine, focusing on the extraction, Aldrich explained, sketching the court's layout in the dirt. He'll have guards, but he'll be vulnerable. If we can reach the machine, disrupt it. I can do that, Suri interrupted. My delivery job, I worked with electronics routing systems. If that machine runs on any kind of energy flow, I can short it out. Aldrich looked at her with surprise. You never mentioned. You never asked what a delivery driver actually knows, she smiled. I fix my bike every week. Trust me, I can break that thing. Then here's the plan, Aldrich said. We attack during the eclipse. Valor will be expecting us, but he'll expect us to try to run or hide. Instead, we go straight for him. I engage Valor directly while you take out the machine. Once it's down, his corrupted vampires will be disoriented. The machine is feeding them power. And if things go wrong, then we trust the bond. He met her eyes. No matter what happens, we don't let go. Agreed. Agreed. The lunar eclipse began at midnight on the third day. The moon turned blood red, then began to darken as Earth's shadow crept across its face. Suri and Aldrich stood at the entrance to the moon court, hands linked, the marks on their wrists blazing like twin suns. Ready? Aldrich asked. Suri took a breath, feeling his steadiness flow through the bond, mixing with her determination. Ready. They descended into hell. The court was packed with Valor's corrupted followers, and at the center, the general himself stood before his machine, radiating dark triumph. On the chair sat a captured vampire, one of Aldrich's people, struggling weakly against restraints. He's testing it, Suri realized. Using someone else first. Then we're just in time. Aldrich's voice carried across the chamber, amplified by the stone. Valor, I challenge you for the moon court. Every head turned. Valor's smile was vicious. You challenge me? With what army? Failed king. I don't need an army. Aldrich raised their joined hands, and the bond flared so bright it illuminated the entire chamber. I have something better. The corrupted vampires attacked en masse, a wave of claws and fangs. But Suri and Aldrich were ready. They moved through the horde like water, the bond amplifying every move. Suri struck with strength that shouldn't have been human, while Aldrich fought with precision sharpened by her clarity of thought. They were unstoppable. Suri broke away from Aldrich, racing for the machine while he kept the guards occupied. Energy still thrummed between them despite the distance. She could feel his awareness tracking her, protecting her flanks. She reached the machine and dropped to her knees, examining its base. Crystal conduits, energy channels, a central power core pulsing with dark light. It was complex, but the principle was simple. It concentrated and redirected blood magic. Simple to break too, she muttered, pulling the small knife from her belt. She began severing conduits, and the machine's hum turned to a scream. No! Valor's roar echoed across the court. He abandoned his position, charging toward her. Aldrich intercepted him mid-leap. They collided with earth-shaking force, vampire king versus treacherous general, centuries of betrayal coming to a head. But Valor was stronger. Enhanced by his own dark magic, he overpowered Aldrich, slamming him into a column hard enough to crack stone. Through the bond, Suri felt Aldrich's pain like her own, felt his strength failing.
And made a choice.
She turned from the machine and ran toward the fight, letting the bond open completely. Every barrier dropped. Every wall came down. She poured everything she had into Aldrich, her strength, her will, her life force itself. The marks on their wrists exploded with light. Aldrich rose, and he was transformed. His eyes blazed pure silver, power radiating from him in waves. This was the Moon King at full strength, channeling a guardian's bond, exactly as the prophecy foretold. He caught Valor's next strike with one hand. You wanted to see true moonborn power? Aldrich's voice resonated with ancient authority. Here it is. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a reckoning. Aldrich moved faster than Suri's enhanced eyes could follow, each strike precise and devastating. Valor fought back desperately, but against the fully awakened bond, he was nothing. Just a traitor facing justice 300 years overdue. The final blow sent Valor crashing into his own machine. The impact shattered the already damaged core, and the entire apparatus exploded in a wave of released energy. The corrupted vampires screamed as the dark magic sustaining them burned away. The black veins in the court's walls began to fade, white stone returning to its original purity. Valor lay broken in the rubble, his power spent. Impossible, he gasped. The curse. I made it perfect. You made it flawed, Aldrich said coldly. You forgot that true strength comes from unity, not domination. He raised his hand for the killing blow. But Suri's voice stopped him. Aldrich, look. She pointed at the walls, where other vampires were emerging from hidden alcoves, preserved in stasis, just as Aldrich had hoped. His people, untouched by the curse, beginning to wake. The nightfall curse was broken. Aldrich looked at Valor one last time, then stepped back. Death would be mercy. Instead, you'll watch everything you tried to destroy flourish without you. He turned to Suri, and the bond settled between them. No longer frantic, no longer desperate, but steady and sure. Strong. Together, they'd won. The moon court transformed over the following weeks. The white stone gleamed under restored enchantments, the black corruption purged completely. Vampires emerged from stasis one by one. Aldrich's people, preserved through centuries, blinking awake into a world that had changed beyond recognition. Suri watched from a balcony as the court came alive again. Below, vampires moved through the halls with purpose, rebuilding, reconnecting. Some were wary of her, the human with the guardian mark, but most looked at her with something like reverence. They're calling you the Moonlit Guardian, Aldrich said, joining her. He looked different now, still carrying that ancient weight, but lighter somehow. Hopeful. Some of the older ones remember the stories. They never thought they'd see a guardian born again. I'm still getting used to being called anything other than delivery girl, Suri smiled, but it faded as she looked at her wrist. The mark had stabilized, no longer spreading, but it was permanent. A silver reminder of the night she'd saved a dying stranger. What happens now?
Now.
Aldrich leaned against the balcony beside her. Now we rebuild. The Moonborn were scattered, but not destroyed. Word is spreading that the curse is broken, that the court has been reclaimed. They'll come home. And the other factions? The Shadeborn won't just let you consolidate power. No, they won't, his expression hardened. There will be challenges. Conflicts. The vampire world has existed in chaos for 3 centuries. Re-establishing order won't be peaceful. Sounds exhausting. It will be. He turned to face her fully. Which is why I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Suri's heart skipped. Through the bond, she felt his nervousness, his hope, his fear of her answer.
Ask.
Stay, the word came out quietly. Not as a prisoner of the bond, not out of obligation, but as my partner.
Help me rebuild what was lost.
The Moonborn need a guardian, and he paused, vulnerability crossing his face. I need you, Suri. Not just for your blood or the prophecy. I need you. She'd been expecting this. Had been thinking about it every day since Valor's defeat. Her old life was gone, her apartment, her delivery job, the simple existence of someone who just wanted to pay rent and survive. That Suri felt like a different person. This Suri had fought vampires, had channeled ancient power, had helped break a 300-year curse. This Suri had found something worth staying for. On one condition, she said. Aldrich tensed. Name it. I'm not your subject. Not your servant. Not some human pet you keep around. She held up her marked wrist. The bond makes us equals. So treat me like one. I want a real voice in decisions. I want to help shape what comes next, not just follow orders. A smile broke across his face, genuine, relieved, radiant. I wouldn't have it any other way. Then yes, I'll stay. He pulled her into an embrace, and the bond hummed with contentment between them. For a moment, they just stood there, 2 people who'd found each other by accident and chosen each other by design. The coronation ceremony happened under the full moon a month later. The court was packed, hundreds of Moonborn who'd answered the call home, plus representatives from neutral vampire clans, and even a few brave human dignitaries from nearby cities who'd learned the truth about their supernatural neighbors. Aldrich stood at the center of the grand hall, restored to his full authority. He wore ancient regalia, silver armor that seemed to glow with inner light, a crown of lunar metal that caught and reflected moonbeams. But he didn't stand alone. My people, Aldrich's voice carried through the chamber. For 3 centuries, we suffered under a curse born of betrayal. We were scattered, weakened, nearly destroyed. But we survived. And now, with the curse broken, we begin again. He gestured, and Suri stepped forward. She wore a guardian's ceremonial robes, deep blue embroidered with silver moons, the mark on her wrist visible and gleaming. She'd argued against the formality, but Aldrich had insisted this moment needed ceremony. The Linares Guardians once stood with us as partners, not servants. They were our anchors, our conscience, our bridge to the human world we coexisted with. Aldrich took Suri's hand, raising it so everyone could see their joined marks. Today, I restore that ancient alliance. Suri Kong, Guardian-born, I name you first Guardian of the Moon Court. You will stand as my equal in all matters of state, my partner in rebuilding our kingdom. Whispers rippled through the crowd. This was unprecedented, giving a human such authority. But no one objected. They'd all heard the stories of how she'd fought beside their king, how together they'd defeated Valor and broken the curse. Do you accept this responsibility? Aldrich asked formally, but his eyes held warmth meant only for her. I accept, Suri said clearly. And I swear to serve not just the Moonborn, but the peace between all peoples, human and vampire alike. The court erupted in acknowledgement. Not quite cheers. Vampires were too dignified for that, but a resonant hum of approval that vibrated through the stone itself. Later, after the ceremony, after the political meetings and formal introductions, Suri found herself back on the balcony, looking up at the full moon. Tired, Aldrich joined her, having shed the ceremonial armor for simpler clothes. Exhausted. How do you do this every day? Practice. 300 years of it, technically, he smiled. You'll get used to it. Will I? She looked at the court below, at the vampires who now looked to her for guidance. Sometimes I still feel like that delivery driver who just wanted to help someone. And now I'm helping reshape supernatural politics. You're still that person. Aldrich's hand found hers, their marks warm where they touched. The woman who stopped in a snowstorm to save a dying stranger. That compassion, that instinct to help, that's what makes you a true guardian. Not the bond, not the prophecy. You. Suri leaned against him, feeling the steady presence of their connection. It no longer frightened her. It was just part of who they were now. Two souls that had found each other in the darkness and chosen to face the light together. We still have enemies out there, she said quietly. The Shadeborn, other factions who don't want peace. We do, Aldrich agreed. And we'll face them. Together. Together, Suri echoed. Above them, the moon shone silver and full, casting light over the court. A new era had begun. Not perfect, not without challenges, but filled with possibility. The delivery driver and the vampire king. The guardian and her moon king. Together, they'd finished their enemies. Together, they'd begun something new. And under one moon, they would forge a future neither world had dared imagine.